Spider-Man was exploring the building's vast interior spaces. Might as well see what he could see, since it seemed likely he was going to spend the rest of his life there. He was thinking of home, of New York and Mary Jane. He even missed J. Jonah Jameson. Staying on the move helped him feel less homesick. He swung past the big hall outside the command center. A few of the others were watching the lightning, and Reed was cycling through a series of images on the holographic screens that overlaid some of the windows. He appeared to have figured out how to use the terminals and instrument arrays without much trouble, almost as if they'd been designed for human use, as unlikely as that seemed. The room wasn't that much different than a helicarrier bridge, except that there weren't shield logos everywhere. Storm passed by on her way down from... Had she been outside? She was soaking wet anyway, and Spidey could have smelled the ozone on her a mile away. He continued on as she passed out of sight. This place was big. It was like having an entire city to explore. He swung by a window where he could look out on the storm and floodwaters. It was something else. But you could only watch a storm for so long, so Spidey swung on. Before too long, he was thinking about the Beyonder, granting his fondest wish, his heart's desire. What Spidey wanted was Gwen back alive, and Uncle Ben. That was it. No world domination, no more superpowers than he already had, no riches. Well, riches would be nice. But no, Gwen and Ben, that's what he would want. While Peter was hanging their wool gathering, Reed left the command center. He walked toward his quarters with his head down, as if the whole weight of Battleworld was on his shoulders. Spidey couldn't blame him. Reed had to be missing Sue and Franklin. A lot of them had loved ones they'd left behind. Spidey missed MJ something fierce. But Reed also had a leadership role here, and it was hard to be a leader when you had no idea what you were leading your troops toward, or why. Challenged to play survival of the fittest by a loony space alien who had destroyed a galaxy and told you that if you did what he said, you'd have everything you ever wanted.
Geez, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of crazy.
He looked around for the right spot to slap a little webbing and swing down, someplace where he could sit and try to avoid thinking too much about things he couldn't control. Battleworld, Galactus, the sad state of the Mets, when he noticed a gathering below.
What have we here?
A little meeting of mutants, that was what. Storm was just joining. Xavier, man, it was weird to see him walking around, was the focal point. Wolverine, Colossus, Rogue, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler were already there. Spidey had always liked Nightcrawler. He felt kind of simpatico with him, except for the blue skin and demonic appearance and teleportation powers.
I dislike it. Already we keep ourselves apart, and now, is this truly the best course?
Kurt, we must take matters into our own hands. We do not belong here.
I'll say. I've tangled the Avengers before. They didn't like seeing me here with y'all anyhow, and I'm guessing that they don't like any of us around by extension. Seems like they think we're all outlaws.
Like I said before, they're all government stooges when you get right down to it. Let them start something.
Control yourself, Logan. The last thing we need before we leave is an incident, but leave we must. Captain America and Wasp are figures of authority. The X-Men have not fared well when allied to authority. We must be our own law, as we have been back on Earth. We will do what is right, but we will not do what we are told. The only way to ensure our autonomy is to separate ourselves from the Avengers and their cohorts.
Colossus and Storm stood together. Cyclops hadn't said anything yet, which Spidey thought was weird because normally you couldn't stop that guy from bossing everyone around.
Must it ever be so? Must even those who are different among humans fear and hate us because we as mutants at times must operate outside the law?
Is that what's happening? I do not see it. All of us are fearing each other, nicht wahr? We are far from home, and we have been told to kill our enemies. They will try to kill us too. Why would there not be fear?
Dear Kurt, I would love for that to be the only problem. But if you do not see the way they look at us, it is because you aren't looking.
Nobody likes it. I talk to Reed every couple of hours. He doesn't mean anyone harm on our side, but when push comes to shove, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four will band together, and we're going to be out in the cold.
Not if we have already formed a new alliance with Magneto that will protect us all. I do not like it, but I think Xavier is correct. This is the only way.
What about Spider-Man? He's not an Avenger.
Spider-Man, Rogue, is Spider-Man. He is eavesdropping on us now.
Uh-oh.
Maybe the window was weaker than he thought, or maybe it had been loosened by the impact of the falling debris. But whatever the cause, it broke when Spidey went to spring away. He fell right into the middle of the X-Men.
Hey, everyone! I heard what you guys were saying, and I have to tell you, I didn't like it too much. Gonna have to rat you out now. Hope you won't mind.
He nudged Xavier out of the way, not wanting to hurt him, but gave Cyclops a little more of a shove. Then he was bounding away from the X-Men, snapping webs at anyone who got too close, and trying to figure out how the heck you got out of this room anyway.
Come here, kid. Settle down and listen. You don't know what...
Spidey gave Wolverine a little web gag. He didn't like when people called him a kid. He'd been doing this since he was 15 years old, longer than many of the other heroes present.
We can explain!
Tell it to the Marines, tough guy. I heard enough when you mentioned a new alliance with Magneto. In case you've forgotten, he just kidnapped Wasp.
Spider-Man wrapped up Rogue and almost had Nightcrawler too, but the little blue guy teleported out of the way.
Nice trick.
His spider sense was firing on all cylinders, and he'd figured that Nightcrawler would reappear right in front of him. So he was unloading his web shooters before Nightcrawler had even appeared again. Man, if he could fight like this all the time. No, Spidey told himself, that would mean staying on Battleworld when the point was to get home. But first he had to get away from the X-Men. Spider-Man could already see Rogue tearing through his webs with her superhuman strength. One of the many powers she'd accidentally, so she claimed, stolen from Carol Danvers. If Spidey let her get too close, she'd steal his powers too. The last thing he needed was to be facing a Spider-Rogue. He swung around and found himself confronting Cyclops, Colossus, Wolverine, and Storm.
Oh, hey, there you are.
Spinning around, he drove a heel into Wolverine's face.
Can't sneak up on me, Whiskers. Don't you know about my Spidey sense?
Spider-Man, it's not what you think. Stop!
Cyclops unleashed an optic blast, but blew a hole in the wall ahead of Spider-Man.
Stop! After this welcoming committee? Not a chance. See ya!
He flipped himself up and over one of the zillion pipes and ducts in the HQ, and then he was too far ahead of them to be caught.
Gotta find Reed. Or Steve? Nope. Reed.
He knew where to find Mr. Fantastic. Reed would know what to do. Spidey retraced his steps, or rather swings, taking off in the direction in which he'd last seen Reed going. His room was down here somewhere. There he was, still walking by himself, slumped and overwhelmed.
Reed!
Spider-Man, what's wrong, son?
Listen to me, we gotta...
What was it that he was in such a hurry about? Peter mentally retraced his steps, remembering how he'd seen Storm go by, smelling like lightning, then wandering.
Huh. I forgot.
Reed was looking at him with grave concern.
Don't sweat it, pal. Lost my train of thought, that's all. Tired. You know how it is. Hey, take it easy.
He swung away. For some reason, he finally felt at ease. With any luck, he would sleep well tonight. Xavier rubbed his temples. He despised using his psionic powers to forcibly manipulate another's mind, but there was too much at stake here. Cyclops even now was talking to Reed to make sure he held no suspicions. Then they would rendezvous at their departure point, and the deed would be done. There was no turning back. Xavier reached out and touched Scott's mind. The conversation with Reed appeared to be going well.
Return, Scott.
The X-Men met in a hangar set into the downstream side of the headquarters. The floodwaters rushed by only a few feet below the landing pad's lip.
I've learned how to operate this vessel. It responds to telepathic commands of sufficient power, which I am fortunate enough to possess.
He didn't mention the strange convenience of this. They had enough concerns. They all boarded and took their seats.
Despite the storm, we must leave at once, X-Men. Know that I do not take this action lightly. It is necessary if we are to survive.